Welcome back here to HGC North America, where it's almost like a birthday celebration because we've got a great series for you guys next between Octalysis and Tempo Storm. Dreadnought, I'm ready to celebrate.
I am ready to celebrate here as well, as it is going to be a bit of a fiesta, I feel like, here at the top half. And that is not in the clown fashion here. It is very much going to be a tense series between Tempo Storm and Octalysis, and mainly just because Octalysis, as we said already, a little bit wild when it comes to the drafting, but their performance so far through HGC, though it has been from the bottom angle here, has been very, very dominant. And now, question is, can they have that same thing happen here against Tempo Storm? I have a feeling like it might be the case. You heard BBJ in the last winner's interview. He was like, they've got it. They've confidently got this win.
They got their popcorn ready, maybe some birthday cake ready, maybe some cupcakes. We've got some standings ready for you guys because Octalysis, as Dread said, they've started from the bottom in terms of the rankings of their opposition. Now we're going to see where they go. Tempo Storm, obviously our #2 team here in North America. That will be their opponent for Tempo Storm. If they lose this series, that solidifies Heroes Hearth even further into that BlizzCon spot. For Tempo Storm, they're still trying to keep their BlizzCon automatic qualifier bid hopes alive, trying to take down Octalysis here.
Yeah, not only does, that further Heroes Hearth towards that auto qualification towards the BlizzCon, but as you said, with the playoffs, that would put, Tempo Storm far less confidently within that second place position and open that up for a lot of other teams, especially Octalysis there residing at the 4th slot. But as we were talking about a little bit before there, when looking at the early rosters that Octalysis has ended up taking on, it has been at the lower angle of that standing. So now it does feel like this is going to be one of the major breaking points. The first time we said that was Endemic. We had good performances from Endemic. Octalysis walks up, we're going to draft a little bit closer to standard, but this is a quick 3-0. Very, very dominant. Almost sub 15-minute games across the board, minus the one they lost, which you could argue was because of one major catch out at a specific point. Well, it was mainly 2, but either way, they were in full control even in that one game. So does that look the same against the Tempo Storm roster?
Well, this style of play brings up some interesting thoughts, and we got the thoughts of Glaurung and Prismaticism ready for you guys right now.
The way I see it, the common denominator for any match versus Octalysis is us. It's like us versus them, and we've just got to realize that there is a lot of variability and wild things that they may draft, but if we build a strong enough foundation and trust in our strategies and in each other, then we should be able to deal with whatever variants they throw our way. Yeah, finding our identity with Vin on the roster has been a process for sure, but everyone's been putting in a ton of work, and I think the results should be there this weekend that we're hoping for, and I feel pretty confident in our matchup versus Octalysis.
The first phase, when we played against Tempo, we had the same doubleheader against Tempo and Heroes Hearth, and for the match against Tempo, we decided that we would try and hide drafts because we were expecting to be able to beat Tempo without using them. And after that weekend, we felt like that was a mistake overall. So coming into this week, we're not going to be hiding any strats or hiding any drafts against Tempo. We're just going to play prepared against them. We don't go out of our way to target weaknesses in game, but it's something that we're always aware of. Glaurung is really exploitable in the offlane. He gets caught out of position and generally dies a lot. If we see an opportunity on Glaurung to take that.
Me and Dread just had to do full Matrix moves to try and dodge those shots that just came out from Prismat. They have a clear focus. It's concerning to me. They're just well, we're not hiding any strats. We didn't feel that we had to hide any strats. Or they did in the first one. They're well, we don't have to this time. It was No Tomorrow. They came right out and they're Zul Medivh, game #1 against No Tomorrow team that you could conceivably say maybe we don't need to show these strats. But Octalysis has shown that they can play around meta. They can play around whatever they want. They're going to do it their way. Their way starts on Infernal Shrines, will be our map choice by Octalysis as Tempo Storm bans Braxis Holdout. Octalysis taking Cursed Hollow out of the equation.
No surprise, really, when looking at any of this selection across the board. We do not normally see an Infernal Shrines opening to a series anymore. Usually it feels like we start with the Dragonshire towards the Volskaya Foundry, something of the likes over there. But not surprising to be able to see that here for Octalysis. I feel like Things that we have to keep in mind. Medivh is going to be a huge playmaking tool for a lot of the compositions by Octalysis, so much so that I wonder if the burden of responsibility kind of falls more in the hands of Tempo Storm when looking at this draft.
Really wonder if we'll see the target onto Glaurung, maybe force him onto heroes that Octalysis thinks, if we put him on this, our chances of ganking are better.
Yeah. That's something I've been talking about a lot when looking towards Tempo Storm, and especially the comfortability towards heroes like the Malthael, though it's not out of the meta. It has seen some kind of setback because of some of the laning pressure that he has in that offlane, or more the how gankable he can be with that low health pool.
Medivh likely to be
non-existent
permabanned for the rest of eternity. Brings up the question of Genji. Draded, we know, plays Genji. We've seen Tempo Storm bring it out at times. But then Octalysis, on this very battleground, the last time that they played, brought out a tank Uther with another support. So they play double support, but Uther as the quote-unquote tank role for Justin. Tempo Storm, they feel, according to Glaurung, that it's a matter of the main variable that we can control and that matters the most is us. We'll see if Tempo Storm has a draft ready for particular style of play from Octalysis.
Well, they're doing a very safe start here. It's not like it's out of the meta now, but if you were to bring triple bans way back and you're playing against a wild team that can bring anything out, what are the two characters that are very strong at accenting that playstyle? Abathur and Medivh are absolutely some of the top two heroes. Though that is standard now, that is, in my mind, part of why we see these bans out from Tempo Storm. Not going to have the Maiev available for themselves, opting towards the Deckard. Not surprising to be able to see Tempo Storm pick that up for June, but it does leave things like Jimmy available if Octalysis would like.
I don't even know what to expect. It's every time I think I'm going to study a team and then figure it out, and then Octalysis comes in, it's like, well,
I can throw out some guesses, I guess. From my perspective, if I was to break down what we were going to see from Octalysis, is that they're not going to get too wild outside of Medivh's if it's let through until they have to. Because if you look at their past, against the teams they were most confident is what they drafted the most wild. Endemic, the least confident, which is when they got the most standard. Tempo is by far the biggest challenger they've seen. So what they're hoping is, can we demand something out of our drafts based on what we showed against those quote-unquote kind of struggling teams or weaker teams than Tempo Storm? And can we bait that and win an advantage through the draft? And other than that, we think we're the better team. So until Tempo Storm shows that they have the tools, I'm going to stick to a bit more meta.
Well, Tempo Storm now has picked up Murd and Chromie. Chromie, you know, has that long-range siege potential against the Sergeant Hammer. I don't really like Chromie Genji. I hadn't for a long time. But it does bring up the possibility that if Chromie has the focus target, Genji has the focus target, and you go in, could spell a hammer death. Yrel does provide the armor via her level 4. And Octalysis, most recently, did run the double support. Whitemane definitely comes to mind here when I think about Octalysis. See if Tempo Storm feels the same.
Even more so with that Yrel. As we have talked about in the past, the armor stacking between those two is a beautiful, beautiful sight. Depending on if you have those on your team or you're against it.
Oh, Yrel's jumping at me, and she's on my team? Okay, this is fine.
All right, we're good. 75 armor, let's go. 5 seconds out from the next two picks, though, from Tempo. Frontline, for Octalysis, We do get our Uther, but this is really cool what we see from Octalysis based on, because we have seen the double support before. If you pick the Uther, the question is there another support behind that, or is there not another support? And in fact, it's just a Uther Genji comp.
That's a lot of armor.
It is.
Do you just go Alex Straza? Say, we just all in, however we want. That it's such a weird dynamic.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever really experienced this in the truest sense as we're going to see Raynor and Malthael picked up. I would find it hard to believe that Uther would be the solo support here.
Yeah, I agree. Into a Raynor specifically, Raynor's consistent damage output outtrades Uther's solo supporting capabilities drastically.
Now you add the pepper in there too.
Yeah, the only way you make up for that is if you somehow pick a warrior that can have cross-supporting to make up for that. Things like Tyrael, but it's not like Tyrael Uther Genji compositions are innovating and something we haven't seen for pretty much the past 2 years of competitive heroes.
But an Uther Stukov is.
Yeah,
We got the double support. It does take care of the AoE heals. You have lockdown potential now between the Uther point and click stun. You have the follow-up with the Lurking Arm. So you have some control. That's kind of where Uther comes in as the tank role for Octalysis, is that point and click stun is definitely there.
Yeah.
Potential double stun post 16, almost a rewind of sorts with his benediction. So you get the double stun lockdown. Genji has target right in front of you. Does give you the follow-up capabilities. But Sergeant Hammer and Genji have very conflicting styles of play, Dreadnought.
Yeah, they do have that. Genji wants to go in. Hammer's like, well, what about hanging out right here? As long as you're in this circle, that sounds like a really cool time. And that should create problems, but I think where this composition makes up for that is by having the Yrel and the Uther. Both of those can go in or play safe very comfortably based on the armor distribution. So it's kind of wait until Genji finds a prime opportunity, peel off the hammer, and then once you get a good situation, everybody pull the trigger and really kind of ignite here. But in the blue, it is Octalysis, where Justin, in fact, is going to be on that Uther. We have Goku playing the Yrel, Draded on his Genji, Prismaticism playing the Sergeant Hammer, and Buds on the real support here, Stukov.
For Tempo Storm, the variable they can control is themselves. Glaurung spoke those words. He's going to be on the Mouth Hill, Caterpillar on Murden. We'll see Vin bringing the Chromie bombs. You know this is a slightly buffed Chromie. Fan, he'll be on Raynor, leaving June on the Deckard King.
When looking at the health bars of Tempo Storm, JL, in this current meta, if I told you were a Genji against a Malthel, Deckard, Chromie, Raynor, you go, that's not real life. There's no way I can find myself in that. Octalysis has got to be thankful there that they have so many low health pools resetting, or at least possibly resetting, for Draded.
I believe I was talking to Josh not too long ago, old producer Josh, about Sergeant Hammer. I think he said to me, why does nobody go Maelstrom rounds? Prismat, we know, definitely mixes up his builds, most noticeably on a Li Ming. Here, switching up his level 1, the Maelstrom rounds. Dreadnought, an activatable cooldown, but a way to reset.
Resetting through attacking structures.
Yeah.
Increases the cooldown rate there. So off-lane pressure for Hammer with this build should be quite a bit higher because the auto attack damage increase and then looking to get the resets onto the off structures. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see maybe a neglect towards some of the early game team fighting for Octalysis and more off-lane pressure based on that adjustment.
Yeah, it's 35% bonus attack damage that comes out for 5 seconds. And as Dredd mentioned, getting the cooldown reduction by attacking structures. You can store up to 3 charges, so it's an activatable. It's a very long cooldown. See how that unfolds here. This is my first look at Maelstrom rounds competitively.
I believe it's mine as well.
It's always been ambush, and people wonder about ambush, and it's really just for that momentary proc. Every time you go in, the reset, getting into Hover Siege allows you to move forward and then get the, we're still going to see a combo land there, but they're going in on Vin. Lurking Arm goes down, nicely done. But the combo that we see, excuse me, I got distracted by the Vin part
and
going there.
And now we forgot what our consent structure was.
But the ambush value, it's just really for that proc that you get as soon as you siege up. Very rarely do you move around and then sit somewhere long enough to go invisible again. Yeah, there we go.
I think a lot of it was, about the trade-off there. And then another thing, too, that's not a main primary reason we actually see that talent picked up, but it is one of those soft benefits of it. It's much like Eyes in the Dark, the bonus damage you can have in survivability by removing that point and click and the few opportunities you do actually siege up and have an auto just makes it that much easier to survive and not maybe force yourself to drop that self-cleanse. Kato stacking up those Storm Bolts as is per usual for him on that Murden, because we got ourselves the very first shrine. Octalysis with that first kill, gaining with the control over the bottom half with their Impalers. Nice Lurking Arm thrown out there by Buzz. A lot of damage coming through on that one. Vin throws out a Q, but Justin's going to go ahead and wear this until Malthel makes his way up. Octalysis has a big advantage here on information.
Yeah, he does have on a Pale Horse, so it makes the rotation up quicker, but it's just a matter of time. How long does it take for him to make it up here, and is it enough? His Malthael is finally on the way, but the Skeletal Defender's already in favor of Octalysis.
Normally this wouldn't be that big of a problem for Tempo Storm, but because they don't have really that good of Shrine Control itself, getting this 1-4 split is not allowing them to pick up very many of these Skeletal Defenders themselves, versus the auto attacks of Hammer, or as you see Goku there on that Yrel, the clear that she has is unrivaled, it feels like, compared to some of those other offlaners. With that in mind, Octalysis pick up the first Arcane Punisher here of the game. Yrel going for those side soak is going to be Goku making his way down. And we'll see what Octalysis can make happen here as Prismat going to use those Maelstrom rounds to get some damage out.
Does allow a lot more sieging. But as you mentioned, getting the cooldown reduction is the ever so important part. Very good defense so far from Tempo Storm. Draded even playing around there on the Genji. Not even getting the full wall.
Not as much as you normally expect, but Yrel did also match on the 4-man. It's not like Octalysis is committed to that top structure that hard. And they have a Genji with their hammer and a double support. You know, we have to keep that into context. And the fact that you have a double support, you're sieging, even though you got a hammer, you're losing essentially an entire backline roll that would probably do a lot more damage than the other.
This game will really pick up around the next Shrine phase. Mid-Shrine, it's easier to position as a Sergeant Hammer between that middle and bottom, less flank. Or I guess I should say more exit strategies, more areas to siege up comfortably. There's not a heavy dive. I mean, Raynor and Chromie can drop bombs from afar, but it's never about the dive that you have to worry about looking at this composition, unless the Malthael and Murden come over, and with a double support does give you a lot of safety.
I think what the biggest threat that's going to come in the dive sense is not so divey, it's more of the, if you can't get to the hammer, you bring the hammer to you. Hold up there, nice Swift Strike there for a moment.
You think a haymaker?
No. Just the, you try to get out any defensive cooldowns early and then wait for the reinitiation, and that's when you look for a Lornado try and displacement with the Lacerites combo. If you're gonna all in the hammer, I think that's the only way you can do it, is use the Lornado and have her go ahead and scuttle herself over to your side. Red Rover, bring Sergeant Hammer right over.
Well, when you were talking about hugging trees earlier, I thought children holding hands and games that you would play, that was the one I thought about was Red Rover.
Yeah.
But you meant everybody playing Red Rover with the tree. The tree doesn't move, Dread.
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Poor tree.
Talking Trees does, though.
Ooh.
Shamans picked up for both teams. Octalysis, though, look at this. Goku not even willing to kind of poke and prod onto the lane, at least not yet. He's going to make sure it gets as far to his side of the battlefield here before committing to the clear. It's going to make sure that their Shaman camp gets a very easy pressure and advantage in favor of Octalysis. That should demand some kind of answers from Tempo Storm. Because that Shaman, really difficult to handle there. We got ourselves a Dragon Blade. No selection quite yet for Justing. Going to assume it is the Dragon, or the Divine Shield, like it was last time we got this combo, and anytime you get yourself a Genji and a Dragon Blade, it pretty much screams Divine Shield.
Well, you mentioned warranting a response from Tempo Storm, Dreadnought. That Shaman camp did just that. That's allowing Octalysis to move to this bot lane. They'll grab the Impalers, same way they did around the first one. Quick enough rotation. They'll be able to get to this shrine. See how much value that gets over time, but for now, our attention on the mid-shrine.
Oh, that Swift Strike onto a trap, met with a Storm Bolt. A lot of responsive damage there as we see Goku go in with that leap in the hammer. The reason Graded is able to survive that skirmish there. Great job from him. Hyperion is out there, set out by Fan. 13 Skeletal Defenders in the hands of Tempo Storm. As Octalysis, after this goes down, gonna look to initiate. Graded now moves up. Lurking Arm goes down. Cattle, kind of the focus for now. Scroll of Ceiling sent out, but he's just fine. Slowing Sands dropped by Vin. Damage comes in and Draded, but he deflects it back. 18-21 in Skeletal Defenders in favor of Tempo Storm.
Dragon Blade's out. See if we get the D-Shield. D-Shield is there. He's starting to slice and dice. Fan has that armor, allowing him to survive for now. Draded not willing to try and commit to the Swift Strike, but the damage is done. Space created. 2 big heroics, but it does net them another Punisher.
But those 2 big heroics are also half of the siege. Outside of the Sergeant Hammer, they don't really have that good of siege opportunities, and I don't think we're late enough in the game for that single target siege to be that threatening along with this Punisher. Octalysis may wish that they ended up having that Dragon Blade for themselves in a couple of seconds, so much so that Tempo Storm now, with this rotation up, I would like to see them bait out the second leap and then maybe get a fight afterwards. Doesn't look like they're going to get it fast enough, though. And the forward
Lurking
goes.
arm. Oh. Buds has had very well-positioned lurking arms Dreadnought.
Yeah.
Has been very threatening, and even when you think you can try and counter that, you realize that Uther is the second support. And so trying to dive, disrupt that type of rotation, very difficult to do. As you mentioned, though, the D shield, when that's down, does open up different opportunities for you, including fast rights.
One thing that with Buds that we've seen already in this game that is really uncommon, especially for North American supports, is he's getting value out of the weighted partial combo pre-13. Normally we see teams really wait on saving the amplified slow, but that early initiation over the top shrine was him with that increased slow to set up the team for a really big lurking arm and set the objective into their favor.
Ben surviving for now, Dreaded unable to get there, but that combo, perfect timing, Dread.
Bud's making plays.
That's so scary. Chromie just barely able to live there.
Now, Octalysis, siege away on bottom. Should be pretty easy for them, thanks to the adjustment on the talents as we were talking about there. Lurking arm combo lands onto Muradin, stun follow-up, but it's a Muradin. Not going to get a kill here yet. Dre to join in as Tempo Storm, questioning if they can defend this. 13 talents here is here. If Tempo Storm's going to choose a fight, now's the time.
The next Punisher is this bot lane, so taking away a retreat option, the well's already gone. Taking away the retreat option would just help even more. Prismat just needs to move forward if he can, but Dreaded trying to see, look for Buds to try and create an opening, but Justine taking so much damage, ends up having to self-D-shield there. Swift Strike misses, no D-shield here for the Dragon Blade. Octalysis got what they came for, but maybe took off more than they can chew.
Maybe Cattle now with the Avatar, Buds using the lurking arm and then the flailing swipe afterwards. Stormbolt just barely out of range, except for when Dreaded goes back, able to dodge the Chromie damage there. But Jayhow, that was a very clear dive attempt there that took a long time to orchestrate. Way too long for Octalysis to figure out how they were going to go about that there, because that fort was very, very low from the very beginning, and then Tempo Storm forcing Justine to get the self-divine shield was the reason that did not go to a, oh, Tempo Storm, look at this divine shield Dreaded, ripping them apart. Great job by Tempo Storm to be able to hold that off, but Octalysis for a moment there showing communication is a bit slower than they'd like.
They have the Shaman camp pushing top. Several members of Octalysis have responded, while Justine on the Uther pushed out that bottom camp. That will buy some time for Octalysis to make the rotation to this bottom shrine. Not a close enough advantage towards 16 to be overly threatening, so Tempo Storm, this will be a fight for them to try and take.
It's going to be a very important fight for Tempo Storm, even more so I feel like than Octalysis here, as we see Skeletal Defenders slightly in favor of Tempo Storm. That slowing sands thrown down by Vin, making that advance so difficult for Goku, already falling down to 10%. The scroll ceiling coming through is going to land, forcing the Ardent Defender fan just bodying Goku there as Prismat already below 20%. Tempo Storm is miles ahead when it comes to this shrine.
The amount of damage that Fan was able to put onto Goku was insane, and now Goku goes in without that Ardent Defender. D-Shield is back up, see if it needs to be used here. Instead, Dreaded, it's time for him to pop off. There's kill number 1. There's going to be Swift Strike. There's kill number 2. Swift Strike number 3. Cattle surviving through that healing static, but that's going to be a triple kill here as Dreaded turned that fight and just stopped on a dime and said, hold on a second, let's go.
That was really well done by Octalysis. I can't help but feel like every second of hesitation we got over that bottom fight around that fort, they used that and was like, we're not letting that happen again. Justine opens on the off-kill target with the original initiation, trying to be able to force the distraction and split up Tempo Storm, and the second Decker gets low, the Swift Strike in and Divine Shield at the same time. The split focus demand of our tank Uther right there. Very well done. And Octalysis now with Dreaded. I mean, it was a beautiful Dragon Blade, don't get me wrong, but when you got a Divine Shield, there's very little to worry about. And now Octalysis is not too much to worry about here as they start their siege over this bottom keep.
Good bait by the Punisher for now, but the Punisher will return its attention down here towards the bottom keep. Goku, cleanse there onto him. The keep will fall. Octalysis taking the first keep of the game behind 4 kills to 0 here at the 14-minute mark.
And now we're late enough in the game where I'm just trying to figure out what is the tools here that Tempo Storm, now that they're going to have to deal with this bottom lane pressure, they do have Malthael for the off lane clear and on a Pale Horse, which is going to help them quite a bit, but by no means do they have that, you know, optimal dealing with a keep down type situation composition with things like the Dahaka or something of the like for themselves. And they're so far behind in experience that we aren't seeing the inevitable 20 spike, but I'm expecting Octalysis to use Prismat on that hammer enough to get enough experience lead that Tempo is going to be in a very tough situation. So much so, I'd like Tempo to maybe try and find a way to keep this lane pushing against them as long as they can. And just make the laning, deny the experience.
Octalysis controlling the camps. We see they're here on the left. 16 picked up for Tempo Storm. Unlikely to have time to make the rotation down to contest this bottom lane. For Octalysis, with that in mind, would there have been an option where they delay that bot lane, or is that bot lane just to force a response and maybe get an advantage elsewhere?
Well, we haven't seen Octalysis take a single camp without a purpose. Every camp they've taken early in this game, they've done it with the intent of a different camp at a different time in the future with a different objective spawning at the exact same time. It's been impressive, J-Hal. It has been, honestly, some of the most concise mercenary timings I've seen so far. And see this, bottom camp started, they pick it up, immediately demands a response. Where is Octalysis? I can't help but feel like there's about to be a little symbol above that mini-map that ends up floating over the next couple of seconds. And you just look at Octalysis and you go, just dismantling here. They can pressure over the top fort with this camp and then zone over that top shaman camp while the next objective spawns. It's pretty play from Octalysis.
We have Draded, of course, with the mobility, allowing him to sit in a bush, gain vision, see if the rotation is there.
I will say, this is a moment where Octalysis is a little bit slower or kind of more off with those rotations than I expected. Because if we see, not only with the timing is it a little bit early, but they're willing to let Tempo essentially know that they are over that shaman anchoring and pick up their shamans for free. Though Tempo picks theirs up earlier and that Octalysis will be able to claim their own at a later stage and have the advantage. Oh, maybe not. Now that Cattle's getting that close. Goku's the focus. So Octalysis still wins the upper hand, but I can't help but feel like maybe not as much as they would have liked in this situation.
Well, Genji's down at the bottom. We are at the 16, 17-minute mark with level 18. The catapults definitely can become threatening if they mount up. It's still early to expect the Winions to try and take over. Both shaman camps cleared up here. Malthael will show on the bottom. Genji will make the rotation mid to try and catch some of that soak. Octalysis is getting closer and closer to that 20. And they have the numbers advantage if they want to try and take a fight.
Cloud did end up getting the clear, though, over the last Cattle in that wave. Or excuse me, not Cattle in the wave, but Catapult in the wave. Sorry, Cattle.
Tempo Storm is on a timer, and they are escalating this quickly. See how early Hyperion comes out. This time, Draded comes in on the backside, already getting damage out.
Already getting the damage out. Ardent Defender even popped there. 14 Skeletal Defenders, about 10 advantage in favor of Tempo Storm here. That well on bottom still alive. It will distract that Catapult over. That'll make a triple Catapult stack in about a minute in favor of Octalysis. So can they delay this out into their favor? They go in. Look at that switch strike right onto a trap. Divine Shield pop. Can they get the reset? June goes down. Reset one. Can Draded find another?
Oh, no. He got interrupted by the Lornado.
The damage comes through. He is going to be able to kite away, but 33 Skeletal Defenders in favor of Tempo Storm. That third Catapult building on bottom now as Octalysis focused on the objective.
I think he went to Swift Strike through, and the Lornado actually interrupted him. I think he was about to get another reset onto that Malthael. Instead, speaking of reset, Muradin?
He's out.
Just deleted.
Catapult's building on bottom. Now no well to get distracted by. It's only going to be a two-man, but Fan out of here now. Worrying about that is the three-man kill potential of Octalysis, or three-man advantage more so, to put them in a position to pick up this objective. The struggle with the timing around this, J-How, is that without the Urel and Malthael being so close to the spawn point, it's a 4 versus 4 almost immediately. Then there's going to be 10-second time travel for Urel to get back. That allows Muradin to be alive. So Tempo has an even defense at all points, even though their death timers are staggered against them.
These Maelstrom rounds, you can hear them as they siege up. This Punisher still very healthy, and the keep already down. They have to bait this over. The Punisher going towards the well, and you can see Malthael wants to draw that aggro, does manage to do that. Swift strike through instant. Follow-up stun. There's going to be a kill. He didn't get through. That's one member down. It's a 5v4 with a very healthy Punisher. Octalysis may be looking in here.
Yeah, and with a man up and a Sergeant Hammer, this is not going to be that easy of a defense for Tempo Storm. They need to find a way to get onto the back line. Drayden goes in with the follow-up after that lurking arm. Big scroll of ceiling. Divine Shield drop, but Jayhow, that looks like that is all she wrote here. 20 minutes deep, and Octalysis take game number 1 in dominant fashion over Tempo Storm.
Tank Uther apparently is here to stay for Justine. This was their battleground choice. Always have to put that into context, especially for a team like Tempo Storm that excels from the second pick position, excels from picking their battleground. Chromie doing her best there. But the D-Shield Dragon Blade. It's hard to just go into that naturally now, but I guess if Uther is your tank, you can do so comfortably.
Yep.
That's one way to bring it back.
It is a way to be able to bring it back, is just make it to where it's like, well, we denied a primary role, and we're going to pick up the Uther for the Divine Shield in the downtime. There are trade-offs that should exist within this, right? We saw it when double support was the go-to, like internationally the go-to. It is the front wall early game pressure, but with the experience not being as relevant towards those front walls, then cycling the pressure against it is not a counter and an option you can have to really snowball the game against a double support. So the answer is you have to have early fort pressure most of the time on most battlegrounds, which we know very few heroes in the current meta actually have that, like the Raynors, the Hammers, the Sylves, post 20 Li Mings, which that doesn't even really count because that has to happen in levels 1 through 9. So it's why we see, I think, a lot of this happening and why nobody has really found a way to get that major pressure against it. And Octalysis just looks good.
It did look good. I'm very impressed with the way that Octalysis performed. The biggest thing for me was when I talked to some of the players this week, the question was, what is it outside of the drafts that is making Octalysis perform so well? I said, well, the drafts are a big part of it. It's hard to ignore that. But it is what they're drafting allowing them to make those rotations, and that seemed to be the common theme of that. So I think you're hitting the nail on the head because that's what the players are seeing. They recognize this, and it is somewhat difficult to deal with at times in the rotations. So Tempo Storm, they have some answers. We know that Dragonshire was not banned Dread. That's their favorite battleground.
Sorry, I just came up with a really good idea, and I'm really excited to share it, but it doesn't necessarily respond to your point that well. If you want an answer to double support, a pretty good answer is Illidan. Illidan provides early game threat potential to front walls faster than everybody, fort potential very, very fast compared to most heroes, and double support really struggles to find a way to kill an Illidan because he's one of the only bruisers whose survivability is so good that if you just don't have enough damage, he's like, I don't care who you are, I'm going to win this game. Rising in Korea a little bit, I'm just saying, that might be something.
I know another hero, Dreadnought, that can do the same thing. Maybe not a bruiser role. Speaking of Dragon